Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the 16th session of our weekly virtual teachings by very venerable, very uh, trusted master, our dearest Geshe Lhakdor. So, once again, we are blessed with his presence, and he's ever ready to share his insights and wisdom with us. And we cannot be more blessed. Thank you so much, Kishla, for being here and to welcome you all. Let's bask in these blessings from Geshe. Thank you so much, Geshe. Please enlighten us.
The Tibetan word for blessing is chinlap. Two words, chin and lap. Chin means magnificence. Lap means to transform. So to bless or chinlap means to transform into a state of magnificence. And I heard His Holiness saying that the real blessing has to be given by oneself, not by other people. Even if forget about people like me, but even in the case of a very, very highly enlightened being, it will be very difficult to give that blessing. So it's only through your practice that you can transform yourself into a state of magnificence, not by somebody giving a blessing. Yes, of course, sometimes when the master is very special and the students are devoted and very special, strange things can happen. But generally speaking, I wanted to say this because the core of Buddhist teaching is really one's own practice. In this life also, if you want to achieve success, one has to make the effort. So similarly, in the realm of spiritual practice also, it's really up to us how much blessing you will get, or how much progress you will get, or how much accomplishment you will have. So that is how I want to start. And then today's topic is how to train your mind by seeing what appears to us as empty and what is renowned to us as empty. Everything that is known in the world today should be seen as empty, and everything that appears to us should be seen as empty. And under this topic, the great teacher Rumtamba, with his great compassion and love for the benefit of students, asks a very pertinent question to Atisha by saying, what is the main fault of a practitioner? And then Atisha answers this by saying that the main fault of a practitioner is really the attachment and hatred. And then he asks us a further question by saying, how can we stop this attachment and hatred? Then Atisha answers this by saying that the best way to stop attachment and hatred is to see attachment and hatred and everything else as an illusion, as an emanation. So therefore, one has to understand the meaning of illusion. Illusion could arise through the effect of certain substances, chemicals, medicines that you can emanate and bring into forth many things which may not be there, because it dupes your senses, especially your eye, and then you tend to see as if something is really happening, but actually there's nothing. Then it could be an emanation created by highly enlightened being like Buddha, where he can also, through his miraculous performance, show many things which may not be true. So here, in order to make this point of illusion clear and how much we live our life in illusion, Atisha tells the story of two friends. One is called Chandrabhadra and another is the glorious one, or something like that. So this friend Chandrabhadra was a magician. He is able to create many things. And he tells his friend to study magic. So this friend is married and he has one child. So when he tells his friend to study magic, he refuses to study that by saying that why should I study magic? Instead of learning magic, I really need a horse. So then his magician friend felt that this is a good opportunity to trick him. So one day early morning, through his magical power, he emanates one nice, very nice horse in front of in front of his house. Then he goes to his friend and he says that, do you like to buy this horse? Then he said, I have no money to pay for a horse. So at that time, this friend was uh, spinning some yarns. Then he said, you can give some of these yarns or threads to me. That's enough. Then this friend start thinking, oh, that's quite easy. Now it's a good opportunity to get this good horse with very cheap kind of price. So he gives some yarn. And then his magician, friend, he says, now in order to see how good this horse is, how good the gallop of this horse is, you just ride and see. Then this friend rides on the horse, and the horse suddenly starts running at the highest speed, non-stop. He was unable to stop at all. It keeps on running and running, and then it becomes night. Suddenly he ends up in a very dark, scary place, and he was very scared. Then luckily at a distance he saw a small kind of tent or house where he was able to see some flame. Then he thought, luckily there's somebody. Otherwise, I would be easily killed by tigers and lions and eaten alive. So he goes there, and elderly woman comes out, and he says, I completely lost my way. So it is possible to come in. Then she said, you're most welcome. And then once inside that house, then the woman gives him nice food and then asks him what happened. Then he said, I did like this, and then I am here. Now I lost the path. Then she says, yeah, it happens. It happens. Now you're here. It is not possible for you to go back to your home. And my husband died a long time back, and I have three daughters. So you marry one of my daughter, and all this house and whatever we have belongs to you. You will be the owner. So he marries one of the daughters, and they had in between them three children, one daughter and two sons. So one early morning, the mother went somewhere. His wife went somewhere. So he goes with these three kids, small kids, to the river. So in the river, there was a clear reflection of the moon. So one of the small innocent kid tries to catch hold of that moon in the river, and he suddenly, you know, falls into that river. And then the father tries to go after him to save him. And then another little boy also came after him. And in order to try to stop him or catch the other fellow, he was not able to do both. So two little kids just got drowned. And the little girl, sitting near the bank, was eaten alive by a tiger. So he was trying to, on the one hand, try to save these two kids in the river and then also to scare away that tiger. So in between, he lost all the three and he almost got mad. At that time, the wife came and said, what happened? He said, the two, the sons were taken by river and the daughter eaten by tiger. The mother was so overwhelmed by sadness that she jumped into the river and committed suicide. And then he was, of course, overwhelmed by sadness, and he was started, beating his chest and shouting and yelling, and then pulled his hair. And when he pulled his hair, what he got was that all his hairs were completely white. The hair he got in his hand was white. So he has no words to say what happened. He was not that old. Anyway, he then started thinking this place is a really horrible place, and he started running and running. Somehow, very quickly, he reached back to his home. When he reached back to his home, his, his previous wife was still sitting there singing song and washing some utensils and things like that, and she was not paying any attention to him. Then he said, how come? I suffered so much and you're still singing here, sitting here. Then she said, don't be crazy. What do you mean? It is just few minutes. You went somewhere or whatever. You must have gone out to bask in the sun or whatever. Then he did not believe that. Then she said, look, I have still not finished washing my utensils. And you have also left your work of, uh, making thread out of the yarn. Still it is there. You just go and check yourself. He did that and she was right. So the point of this story is how much suffering you can experience even under illusion. There was totally illusion. Of course, it was just few minutes and he has no time to spend so many years to marry somebody and have children and, suffer from their death and things like that. But it can happen when your mind is under big illusion. Such a wonderful story. So we suffer because of illusion. Things are not there, but because of our misperception, wrong ways of looking at things, especially clinging and grasping, we suffer unnecessarily. So I will elaborate more on this, how to practice. So this was the initial story that Atisha told Domtamba. Uh, and then after having told the story, then he says, now you can see how much suffering you can get even in one day or even in 1 hour when you are under illusion, how much wandering you need to do. So therefore, from this story, one should understand that all phenomena is really like the magician's creation, illusion. There's nothing that is true in the sense of independent existence or whatever. Similarly, the countless sufferings that we are talking about experiencing in the samsara, they are also illusion. They're also illusion. During some of my previous sessions, this time or somewhere, I told people that some of the Kadamba masters, when you talk about suffering to this great practitioners, they would laugh. They would laugh at you and say, what do you mean by suffering? So thereby they are saying that the so-called suffering is just an attitude, how you see things. Therefore, Shantideva in his Bodhisattva Avatar clearly says suffering is introduction to happiness. It's a learning experience. And we suffer because we tend to see what is untrue as true, what is impermanent as permanent, what is suffering as happiness, what is, having no independent existence as having independent existence, what is impure as pure, completely the opposite way. Therefore, we are suffering unnecessarily. So therefore, in order to come out of this illusion, we need to now engage into understanding the reality, especially the ultimate reality or shunyata, through the threefold process of listening, contemplation, and meditation. And it is through repeated habituation or meditation that gradually we will be able to see the reality as it is, as the term we use for path of seeing, where you see emptiness directly. So similarly, the object of your attachment and hatred is also an illusion. And interestingly, Atisha also makes a pertinent point here by saying that in India, when such teachings on shunyata and illusions are given, then normally for the Indians, it's very little bit easier to understand things by giving this example of illusion, especially probably this is my guesswork. Probably in India there are so many magicians, so it's easy to understand. And then he says, in Tibet, maybe it's easier for you to use the example of a dream, like other than the illusion. Because in Tibet, yes, I know other countries also do, but in Tibet, we talk a lot about dreams. So the example, illusion, magical creation, emanation, dreams, so many examples can be used. So therefore, in order to stop attachment and hatred. For example, when you encounter somebody using bad words, then you should see that as an echo. See that as an echo. Today in the office, I was proofreading one very important text by Nagarjuna. So I came across a line which says that whenever you find people doing, behaving negatively or creating problems on others, then you should develop special compassion, thinking that this is a sick person. I mean, how powerful, it's really sick. Of course, on one level, we are all sick, but these people who intentionally create suffering and disturbance to others is sick. So when you see sick person means more or less helpless person. That person will create problem upon himself or herself also. So therefore, they are worthy of developing compassion rather than hatred and anger. Right? As I told you earlier also, so there are many ways of seeing things. One, as I told earlier, that the more you develop loving kindness towards others, all sentient beings, if possible, of course, gradually, the more we develop that, the more these people will become, close to our mind, just like meeting old friends. When you have somebody who is very affectionate to you, your husband, wife, or brother, sister, whoever, somebody who is very close to your heart, even if he or she misbehaves occasionally, you don't really get so much angry, Or even if you, at the superficial or surface level, you might show some kind of irritation and things like that. But deep down, you still have that affection and compassion. So that is something that is possible. I mean, it's not easy, of course, not easy. And all of us, if we not just talk, but see how we are faring in our daily life, how we are reacting to people who say bad things or do negatively, we all have this experience. I have many experiences. It's easy to say. When you read a text, it's very comfortable, and then you even make the promise, yes, I will practice. But when you actually into that situation, you completely forget all those teachings, and you quickly come back to your ordinary, you know, emanation, right? So the attachment, anger, jealousy, and negative emotions, they are like readily available, ready to erupt out. So, to stop the intensity of these negative emotions, we need repeated reflection, hearing, thinking, meditation, the threefold process. So gradually it is possible, at least we can improve. So therefore, one way is to see them as illusion, see them as sick. Another way is to develop this loving kindness, right? Just as you would develop your loving kindness to your little kid, even if they do many naughty things, but their innocence, their purity, their helplessness. So therefore, even if you pretend that you are angry, irritated, but deep down you are not angry, you still have this love and you have this feeling of closeness. So similar like attitude can be possible to develop to others. Then of course all this need practice. And it makes perfect sense. So therefore, as Aryadeva says in his 400 verses, the Buddha sees the negative emotions as enemy and not the person possessing the negative emotion. That's so important. Shantideva also says repeatedly, make a distinction between the wrongdoing and the wrongdoer. Criticize the wrongdoing, but try to help the wrongdoer join the mainstream of the community. Don't make him or her a black sheep in the society, which is something we repeatedly do. When you don't like somebody, you say, he is the person, black sheep in the society. She is the one. And that's how we make divisions in different names. Earlier also I mentioned that our small mind is very fond of making divisions. The more you're fond of making divisions, the more it is clear how narrow-minded and how small your mind is. The sky or space do not make any division. It gives space to everybody. That's why we compare emptiness to space. It doesn't obstruct anybody. It gives space to Americans, to Chinese, to Tibetans, to everybody, right? And that's why many of this, space uh, people who go into the space, the Apollos and so forth, the higher they fly, from further away they fly from the Earth, the more they're able to develop a spatial perspective of the sameness of everybody living on this Earth. The more they go further, the more they're able to see the senselessness of the boundaries that is made between the so-called nations and then even between states and so forth. Right? So therefore, if you are able to see everything as an illusion, and the reality is there is nothing that has independent existence, the reality is like a space, the shunyata is like a space, then you have a lot of space for yourself, for your spiritual development. And that space has to be developed within one's own mind. And a person who has such profound understanding, even if somebody is there to take your life, he or she will not be so terrified. Right? We are terrified because we have this wrong understanding. My life is permanent. It has to live forever. Somebody who has this understanding that everything is changing moment by moment and there's no certainty, life can be gone anytime, then when that change happens, including the death, when it comes, the person is not terrified. He will, just as earlier I had given you the example, just like a great, swimmer is able to ride the tide, the fluctuations of the sea. So therefore, we need to train our mind in this. And especially if you want this, the complete enlightenment, then you need this. And for this, you need to do many practice, including the practice of watching your breath. And when you exhale, giving all the good things you have to others. When you inhale, taking all the sufferings and problems of others in you. And whenever you experience peace and happiness, share it with others. As Shantideva says, even in the case of your possession, if you think, if I give this to others, what should I use? He says that is the devil's way of thinking. Contrarily, if you think, if I use this, what will I give to others? That is the divine way of thinking. Again, of course, I'm not saying it is easy, but practice makes man perfect. Slowly, you can start giving small things, and gradually, Shantideva mentions in Bodhisattva, gradually your mind will be so accustomed that even if you have to offer your body, it will be like giving vegetables to others. Because when you have no grasping, it's all grasping, which makes you worry and fear and things like that. When there is no grasping, right? Now this question, therefore, it becomes important. The meditation on emptiness becomes important. The grasping arises because we have this misconception of seeing the person or the I as something concrete, solid, truly existent. I was comparing notes, not only with the Buddhist teachings, but I was reading some different articles. I read one article, the title, which is What is Character? Or Debunking the Myth of Fixed Personality. They are not Buddhist. The writer of these articles are not Buddhist. Through their own analysis and examination, they came to the conclusion, debunking the myth of fixed personality. And the writer here mentions, we have previously explored what it means to be human and what defines a person. Much of our understanding of personhood hinges on what we call character. Now, the character is fluid. It's not one static thing, it is fluid and responsive to context rather than a static and unflinching set of traits. So a person's authentic nature is a series of shifting, variegated planes that establish themselves as he relates to different people. It is created by and appears within the framework of this interpersonal relationship. So it's fluctuating, changing all the time, depending upon circumstances. The topic of personal identity is, strictly speaking, non-existent, according to this writer. It is important to recognize that we are not the kind of things that simply popped into existence at birth and continue to exist without change, the same thing, then die off the cliff edge or go into another realm. We are this very remarkably ordered collection of things, see? Similar like Buddhist teaching, we are this very remarkably ordered collection of things. It is because we are so ordered that we are able to think of ourselves as being singular persons. Just like you watch the movie, you know, when you see a continuous show, it dupes our eye senses and we see the continuity, but it's not one continuous thing. You see, they're joined together and then it dupes our eye consciousness also. So, but there is no singular person there. That means we are forever changing. We are forever changing. You're completely different, you know, today than what you were when you were a little child. Then there's another quotation from Ralph Waldo Emerson, where this writer says, dream. We are using this word dream repeatedly here in the text also. According to this person, he says, dream delivers us to dream. And there is no end to illusion. Life is a strand of moods like a string of beads. And as we pass through them, they prove to be many colored lenses which paint the world their own hue. Temperament is the iron wire on which the beads are string. And then another one from William James in his The Principle of Psychology sums it up, perhaps best of all, and says, a man has as many social selves as there are individuals who recognize him. Right? Then there's another beautiful one in an article called Embracing the Immaterial Universe by Bruce Lipton. The reductionist approach to understanding the nature of the universe has provided valuable knowledge. So that is the reductionist approach of science. Now, of course, with the quantum understanding, it has changed. But the reductionist approach to understanding the nature of the universe has provided valuable knowledge, enabling us to fly to the moon, transplant artificial hearts, and read the genetic code. However, now listen to this. However, applying this science to world problems has hastened our apparent demise. So because the focus is only on material understanding, there's no understanding of the mind and no understanding of the person. There's another piece by someone else who says a fundamental conclusion of the new physics also acknowledges that observer creates the reality. So that is the now the understanding. The observer creates the reality. Reality is, from Buddhist point of view, an illusion. As observers, we are personally involved with the creation of our own reality. Physicists are being forced to admit that the universe is a mental construction. Pioneering physicist Sir James Jeans wrote, "The stream of knowledge is heading toward a non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accident intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter." So there are countless beautiful quotations. And I think I read it earlier, according to the neuroscientist Anil said, we are all hallucinating all of the time. And when we agree about our hallucination, we call it reality. That was for me very powerful. When we agree about our hallucination, we call it reality. That's on the conventional level, right? The so-called reality or Dhamma, according to our ordinary understanding, is another hallucination. So therefore, the key to understanding that illusion, the key to understanding that shunyata is understanding oneself, understanding one's own mind. Once you are able to understand this space like shunyata, where there is nothing worthy of clinging and grasping, then it becomes very easy for you to offer all your good things to others, profit, victory, everything to others. If somebody says you lost, I win, then you say, okay, wonderful, you go, you won. Just like you would, if your daughter or son wins, you will be happy, right? Ordinarily, when someone else wins, like during this Tibetan now Sejong election, some will win definitely, some will lose. So the loser and all those on the side of the loser, they will feel miserable and sad. Oh, how come, the voting must have been rigged. Now you get so many examples around. So, so instead of that, now join that victory, celebrate, and everybody come together. It will be such a wonderful thing. But people are so stuck with their emotion, misconception. So the problem arises because in the center of the universe you have I, me, and mine. I have to have everything good. Others I don't care much. I have to win. I have to be the most handsome person. I have to be the most beautiful person, whatever you are, but that's what you want, you see. So that's the problem. That's the problem. And if you act like Milarepa, we may not be able to act like him, but if we imitate, Milarepa always says, I have nothing, so I'm so happy. The Buddha also said, I have nothing, so I'm so happy. In our case, if we have nothing, that will be the end of our day, right? So therefore, he emphasized the point that so in doing such a practice, the most amazing, wonderful thing is your enemy, because your enemy will teach you so many things. There are occasions when you should see your enemy more important than your spiritual teacher, which is actually true. If we know how to see things properly, then COVID-19, I think, is a very beautiful teacher. He taught us so many things. The COVID-19 taught us don't pretend, pretension will not work, right? The COVID-19 has told us that unless you change your behavior, you will not be able to stop the pollution. So many things. So therefore, this great practitioner, they would always welcome misfortunes, calamities, illness, and sickness as one of the most powerful, factor that would urge you to do spiritual practice. So for such a practitioner, the main food is food of meditation. The main cloth to wear is not ordinary cloth, but the cloth of morality. And Atisha actually summarizes his teaching by saying that to make a long story short, you should believe in the law of causality. This is how he summarizes this chapter. Then to supplement this topic by pulling some resources from other mind training texts, especially Podova's text and Shantideva's Bodhisattva. For example, in this Podova's heap of examples, he gives these beautiful examples of the meaning of emptiness, the understanding of emptiness. Understanding of emptiness is so important because once you have this wisdom understanding emptiness, then it's really like you are a person with good eyesight. You will recall that out of the 6 perfections, the first 5 perfections are treated like a group of blind people. Giving is very important, morality is very important, but they are the first 5 are like group of blind people who will not be able to know where to go, will not be able to find their path. So it's the wisdom that shows the path. So especially the wisdom understanding emptiness. And he gives another example of a small hole. Even if it's a small hole, from that small hole, you can see the whole space without obstruction. So similarly, even if you're able to understand the nature, ultimate nature, the interdependent origination, emptiness of one object, just like yourself or your mug or your cup, study that mug or cup or that beautiful little thing that you cherish. If you're able to precisely able to understand the interdependent nature of that beautiful object and thereby the empty nature of that object, then from there you will be able to understand all other phenomena as similar, having no inherent independent existence. And then another example of wisdom understanding emptiness is like nectar. If you have a pot of poison, and to that pot of poison, even if you put one powerful nectar, it will nullify the destructive effect of that full pot of poison. So similarly, if you understand the wisdom, you develop the wisdom understanding emptiness, you'll be able to purify all your negative deeds. And that understanding of emptiness is really the way to put an end to the obscuration or afflictive obscurations and obscuration to knowledge. One must meditate on that. And then similarly, the text says, if you want to purify all your negative deeds, the best way is to meditate on emptiness. And in fact, he says that life is short. There's so many things to know. We may not be able to know so many things, but you need to catch hold of some of the most important points, like understanding of emptiness, right? So therefore, if you want to purify negative deeds, meditate on emptiness. If you want to do away with the evil forces or destroy the Lord of the death and so forth, meditate on emptiness. If you want to get yourself protected, the best protection is meditation on emptiness. It's not a red thread. And the heart Hazelness saying this many times when he confers Kala Chakra initiation, the best way of protection. It makes perfect sense because the fear that we get from the COVID-19, from the so-called evil forces, so-called enemy, so-called death, or feeling of lack of security and so forth this fear comes because of your tight grasping to yourself. When you release that grasping, when you understand that self, that I, having no solid, concrete, independent existence as you thought, then why the hell you should worry so much about the so-called I? Perfect sense. Of course, it is easier said than done, not easy to practice, but if you really think, it makes perfect sense. The more you have grasping, the more your mind is biased. the more you will create divisions and enemies, and then more you will have doubts and superstitions and unnecessary problem, unnecessary problem. So this is the way. But however, in order to develop this wisdom, understanding, and witness, you should also have very good store of collection of merit. So therefore, you need to enter into this threefold process of hearing, thinking, and meditation on the whole spiritual path, the topic that comes under the practice of the three individuals, Kivusum Lamrim, as we have already discussed. So in this case, hearing or listening to the teaching is important, and especially the purpose of a bodhisattva is to help all sentient beings. Now, when we talk about all sentient beings, we are talking about countless different mental dispositions, needs, differences in sharpness of the mind, and so many differences. So in order to cater to this, you need to know so many things. That way, it's important. For example, if you have a friend who is a chain smoker, sometimes if you say you're bad, you're a chain smoker, your life is hopeless, he will not listen to you. He will continue his habit. But instead, if you join him as a friend without distancing him and sharing a cup of tea and occasionally taking a puff, although you don't like, but just to say that you're not a bad person, then after that you can gradually say, oh, this is not good. And then because of your friendship, you're traveling with him in the same line, it is possible you can influence that person better. But in order to do that, you yourself should have some integrity. Otherwise, a person who doesn't know swimming tries to save another person who is drowning, both will die together. You should have some integrity, and then you can act a little bit like them, and then there's better chances of helping them. And so listening or hearing the teaching is important. He gives another example of like cooking. When you cook, you need so many things. You need a nice 2, 3 nice pots, and then the scoops, or ladles or spoons, or then when for the actual cooking, you need all these different kind of spices and oil and so many things. By using all these ingredients, you will be able to make a delicious dinner or lunch. So similarly, when you listen to the teaching, you need to have a wider understanding and idea. And some of the teachers say, even in the case of use of knowledge of one term like emptiness, what does it mean? Know that Dharma term properly, precisely. That will make you rich in your Dharma practice. So that's important, right? And then similarly, in the conventional world, you should understand, in the conventional world, you should understand everything as an illusion, as a dream, as the dimness of the eye, as a mirage, as a reflection, as a scarecrow, as a celestial city, as an emanation of the Buddha, and so forth. Understand it. Now here, a question is asked by saying, on our behalf, because it's difficult for us to believe that everything is like an illusion. You can challenge this by saying, what does this mean? Everything is like an illusion, For example, take the example of the mountain in front of you. This mountain is solid and concrete. It has been there when I was born and still there. What do you mean by illusion? You just, and then the solid rocks around, you bump your head against the rock, you will be hurt, It's not an illusion. But against the rock, it's not an illusion, right? So this is, of course, kind of answer that comes in a question that comes in our mind regularly. But this is answered by saying that even the so-called solid rocks and so forth, to you, these solid rocks become solid and hard and things like that, because you are so used with this kind of thinking, not only in this life, but for many countless lives. And then he answers this by saying, for example, you explain to me, what is light for somebody is darkness for another sentient being, an animal. What is darkness for another animal is a light, you see, right? For example, owls can't see anything in the light, daylight. They are able to clearly see things in the night. So how these things came about? So there's not one thing. And then he tells many stories of some meditators. Somebody meditated himself as a tiger and become really a tigress. There are many stories in the past like that. So I would strongly recommend this. Days, unfortunately, I'm not able to see this replace, believe it or not. I don't know whether this is there or not, but you will see many things there. So this is not telling a mythological story which you think is told in Buddhism, but you see these things. I've seen a Russian lady eating, iron plates one after another. How she's able to do that, I saw another one sitting there was a competition sitting in the sauna. There was elderly, very elderly, when you sit there, 10, 20 people sit there inside the sauna. Then when it becomes hotter and hotter, people are not able to stand that. Then they start leaving. Then finally there was one elderly lady. She was able to stand that hot temperature so long that on one side of her, there was somebody who's boiling an omelette. How she is able to do that? Right? And then in our marriage, we all know that somebody says, "Oh, this girl is so beautiful. I'll die for her. This man is so husband, is so handsome. I will die for him." Things like that. But then another one come and say, "Oh, what do you mean? She is so ugly. He is so ugly." so, so who is right? Who is wrong? So it really depends upon your karma, your habituation in the past, right? So therefore, since we have such negative habit right now, we can change that negative habit, make our mind get habituated with the positive ways of thinking and understanding the reality. We can get habituated with that also. That's good news. That's the good news. If you train your mind properly, it can be developed to limitless state. Limitless state means until you become a Buddha. So right now we have all these misperceptions of seeing things as having independent existence because we have very thick layer of negative imprints in our mind. So although our ultimate goal is to understand that emptiness and understand the meaning of everything as an illusion and things like that, but as I said, you need to move to that level at least in some cases gradually. So therefore the Buddha's first teaching, the of the Four Noble Truth, out of which the truth of the suffering, which he explained with the four features: impermanence, suffering, uh, uh, selflessness, and empty of purity and things like that, which on more or less later on now known as the four seals, four Buddhist seals. I think these two are the four features of the Four Noble Truth, and the four seals, I think, quite more or less same. The four seals, or sometimes we have translated it as the four promulgations of the Buddha. Seals means something that you cannot, if you claim yourself as a Buddhist, you cannot, violate this decree. So there's the meaning. So therefore, one has to proceed from there. Understanding of impermanence. Forget about emptiness for a while. Understand emptiness. Now, when we talk, understand impermanence. Now, understanding impermanence means understanding not only the grosser level of impermanence, but the subtler level of impermanence. Now, when we talk about understanding the subtle level of impermanence, we are not talking about impermanence of the rock and the mountain and the, yes, you can understand that also, but that is not so urgent. What is really urgent is the impermanence of your own life. And once you understand this fluctuating, impermanent nature of your own life, you will also be able to understand then the suffering. Therefore, from understanding of impermanence, you will understand suffering. And when you think about the suffering of that person, and then you ask the question, where is this person who is experiencing that suffering? Then you will not find a person having independent inherent existence. Thereby, you will also be able to gradually move into the selflessness, empty of independently existing self. So that's the process. So you do this meditation precisely upon yourself. So therefore, with the meditation on shunyata or emptiness also, the teachers, they advise understanding the emptiness of the self and the person, and the phenomena maybe later on. Otherwise, even if you know, pretend to understand that selfness of phenomena, you might get again arrogant that I'm somebody, who understands the impermanence of phenomena, because you have never touched yourself and you develop this arrogance upon yourself. There's a very interesting story of somebody who was doing a little bit of meditation on emptiness, and he was so puffed up with his practice. And even when there was a assembly and people are sitting in line, he just pushed forward and said, I have to sit in the front row because I'm meditating on emptiness. You see, I'm meditating on emptiness. So therefore, there's a great possibilities of misunderstanding the teaching. In this text by Ottawa, he warns us to be careful about understanding of emptiness. For example, he says, just as this example of this person, Geshe Lhakdor, he very correctly says, whether the rock on that mountain pass, whether that is empty or not empty, is irrelevant, not important. What is important is whether your mind is empty of independent existence or not. And therefore, he clearly tells us that you cannot understand emptiness just by making an assumption. You need to understand this through hearing, thinking, and meditation. Otherwise, you may get misperception, not emptiness, because there are many pitfalls in this practice. For example, you might mistake emptiness as a wrong view, right? For example, when in the name of understanding emptiness, and having understood emptiness, you have removed all the eight worldly dharmas by saying that you will become a person who is shameless. It's wonderful if you really removed eight worldly dharmas. Somebody who has really removed eight worldly dharmas, they also maintain sense of shame, sense of concern to others. But then in the name of having discarded the eight worldly concerns, if you behave, in a crazy manner, sometimes even people call that crazy wisdom, and then you don't observe any of the worldly norms, for example, go naked in the town and city, that's ridiculous. So you can make a lot of mistakes, right? And you might claim that all your mistakes, erroneous thoughts have gone, but actually your thinking must have been, guided by an evil force. And you might say, because I'm meditating on emptiness, I have a lot of loving kindness and compassion for others, but it may be not love, it may be your attachment. Attachment and love, they're very similar. They are very similar. So there are many pitfalls, many areas where you can make mistakes. So therefore, the best start is to, analyze oneself, and then gradually probably to other phenomena, their nature. So when you actually meditate on emptiness, then what you will find For example, take the example of an empty house. Because of certain reasons, if you started thinking that a thief has entered in that room and the thief might take something, but the thief, of course, will not find anything in that empty room. And if you also, in order to uh, ascertain it, if you also go there and then look around, you will not find anything. So similarly, understanding emptiness means when you search whether there is anything having independent existence, and through that search, when you don't find anything, that is actually understanding or finding of emptiness. Therefore, I think it was Maitreya who said in the Ornament of Realization, Mundok Jen, that in this practice of understanding emptiness, there's nothing to eliminate, nothing to affirm, nothing to negate, nothing to affirm. It's not that you negate all the negative things and then affirm all the good things. In our ordinary conventional practice, yes, you do that, but in this search for emptiness, you let your mind simply for the absence of object of negation. Nothing is affirmed, nothing is negated. Just like your mind, and then a pertinent question is asked by saying, how it looks when you meditate on emptiness. This is answered by Buddha by saying that how it looks when you meditate on space. So meditating on space means just absence of obstruction. Nothing is affirmed, nothing is negated. So meditation on emptiness is also said to be like that. So to soar to the state of enlightenment, we, just like a bird to fly into the space needs two wings. Similarly, for us also to fly to the state of enlightenment or space of emptiness, we also need two wings: compassion and wisdom, understanding emptiness. So, in short, to conclude, it is through listening you should identify the afflictive emotions. Identify, recognize. The problem with us is ordinarily we don't even recognize these negative emotions as negative emotions because they are our, regular visitors. They're your friends. They have been coming all the time. You have been offering cup of tea and lunch and dinner all the time. So every time they come, oh, my friend is old, my friend, anger is coming. Oh, my dear sister, attachment is coming, things like that. Right? So now, through listening, you need to understand, you need to recognize that these thieves, these destructive negative emotions are coming. Identify them, recognizing them. Then, having listened and identified the negative emotions, the second step is to suppress them, not to let them manifest their ugly head, to suppress them. Then the third, through meditation, you need to uproot the afflictive emotions. So if you are able to do that, then gradually, of course, you will become Buddha. And once you become Buddha, you can help sentient beings effortlessly. Effortlessly. All right, so I'll stop here today.
So, thank you so much.
Mm.
So, we'll have questions from Natasha now.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Geshe.
Mhm.
Today we have, so far we have three questions from our Russian audience.
Mhm.
The first one is the perfection of giving. Isn't it about having much money? Is it?
No, no, no. Giving, there are three types, as we discussed earlier. Giving material things, including money, and giving dharma, not only Buddhist teaching, but also giving education and things like that. And then giving fearlessness, saving the life of other sentient beings, right? So giving is not just giving money. And in fact, that is not the main giving. The main giving, because you can give a lot of money and other things, but how long that wealth can help that person, unless that person itself is ignorant and stupid, the poverty, deprivation of that person cannot be solved just by giving material things. It's a good start, but after giving the material things, then you need to guide that person how to take care of himself or herself through proper reflection, proper thinking. Okay.
Thank you very much. The next question is about fears.
Mm.
How do you deal with fear until you realize the emptiness of things? Because there are so many fears and they interfere with normal life. Are there specific
No,
meditations to overcome fears?
it's not just meditation, and emptiness is, of course, the ultimate source for removing the fear, the main source for removing the fear. But otherwise, use your common sense. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, fear, there are reasonable fear and unreasonable fear. Reasonable fear means if you are chased by a dog, then it's reasonable to run away rather than saying I have no fear and let the dog bite you. That is stupid fear, right? And then there are, there are useless fears. For example, I have that experience. When you fly in an aeroplane and then the flight is a little bit bumpy, right? And then you just tightly hold the chair with your hand. This is stupid, because by that you cannot stop the aeroplane having accident or whatever, you see. So many of our fear are fearless. Fear are without reason useless. So use your reason, and then just like as Shantideva said in many other occasions, see whether it's something that you can remove or not remove. If you can remove, no need to fear. If you can't remove, no use fear. Right?
Gisela, it is, let me just add about a little bit to it. It is
Mm.
very easy, I mean, like to reason like this, yeah, even in the plane, but um, how to internalize this idea that there is nothing to fear, like,
So,
what
so, so,
Shantideva
so,
suggests.
so therefore, the main reason, as I already explained, is because you have too much grasping to yourself. You're thinking only about yourself. For example, in the flight, if the flight goes down or unfortunately has an accident, everybody will die, not just you. But at that moment, you are thinking, I will die. You're not thinking, you are not worried about other person, you see. So this is stupid, you see. And then one day we have to die. It is not necessarily in the bumpy flight. It can be even after safe landing, you see. So why we are not scared when the aeroplane has landed and when when we are in the air, you see, it's all, there's no certainty.
Thank you very much. And
And then
the
in the
last
flight,
question,
what I personally found useful was sometimes when I have fear, I do few deep breath, you see. It really helps, because when you do this long breathing, you are completely in touch with yourself. It really helps. So things like that. And some people I saw, they are listening to some songs and musics. Okay.
okay, Gisela. And the next question is, it is said that the absolute reality is neither one nor plural nor many. It's beyond unity and plurality. Could you please comment on this?
Beyond unity, plurality, I don't know, but like if you want to think it in terms of plurality, then there can be many, because your emptiness is different from my emptiness. My emptiness is different from the emptiness of the book. So if you think in that way, then there are so many emptinesses, countless emptiness. Just as there are objects, so are the number of emptinesses. So in that sense, there are many emptinesses. But if you look especially from the point of view of the nature of the emptiness itself, then the nature of your emptiness and my emptiness, they are same. Just like water placed in water, when you put some water in another water, you can't distinguish which was the first water and which is the second water. So it's like that, you see. It's the mere absence of independent existence. So from that point of view, it's complete, uniformity or unity, sameness.
Geshe, and I missed just one more question, actually. We had one more.
Mm.
Dear Geshe, do you know those who have overcome 8 worldly dharmas?
No, in Buddhism, we don't know because in internal realization, but I've seen a number of people who really don't care much about wealth and things like that. Not necessarily with the so-called practitioners, but even among people, it's your past lives, imprint and habit and things like that. There are people who are really, they're not at all worried about money and things like that. They're always ready to share and give and not worried about them. I've seen a number of people like that. So more or less they are kind of practicing the, having removed the worldly concerns, right? So there are those people there. Yeah. But these are all like, as Shantideva says in his ninth chapter, the chapter on wisdom, that again he talks about thoroughly understanding emptiness. Once you understand emptiness, there's nothing to lose, nothing to gain. That's the wording that he uses. So once you understand this, the lack of essenceness of everything from the absolute point of view, then all this, as we started in this session, that attachment, hatred, all this goes away because there's nothing. No objective reality that is worthy of grasping and clinging, you see. So it vanishes, right? So there, of course, among the Tibetan meditators, there are a number of really, really good meditators who have already given at worldly concerns, because the fact that they move high into the mountain, discarding everything, and living with these piles of stone as their house, and then few with really meager food to eat and not worried about name, not about, these are the eight worldly concerns, name and fame, and they're not worried at all. Therefore, they move into isolation, you see. So we can categorize many of these people also free from eight worldly concerns. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Hmm?
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you, Natasha. Please thank our friends in Russia for us, especially those who asked these questions. These questions and Geshe-la's answers are truly very helpful. So next we have Jackie. Jackie, you can ask your question now. Okay.
Hello, thank you for your teaching. Is it okay if I ask 2 questions?
Mm-hmm.
So the first was, I didn't quite understand. You said the first 5 sections is like a group of blind people. Could you expand on what you meant, please?
Because when the practice of giving or practice of morality, they are not talking about understanding the reality, right? They're just some practices that you're doing, but there's no emphasis on understanding the reality. So therefore, they are compared like a blind person. Now, the sixth one, the wisdom, understanding emptiness, meaning understanding the reality. Therefore, it is, compared to a person with good eyesight.
Thank you. And then also, you mentioned it's good to meditate on impermanence,
Yeah.
both the gross and the subtle. And then
Yeah.
you said to understand the impermanence of your life. Was that
Yeah.
subtle impermanence or gross impermanence? I guess I don't understand the difference between subtle impermanence and gross impermanence.
Gross impermanence means those changes which even your eye can see. For example, your eye can see a tree falling or house collapsing. So even your eye can see that. So those are very gross. Those gross changes are happening because subtle changes are happening. The house will not collapse like that. Many other changes have happened, and because of this, one day the house collapses and tree falls. So that means momentary changes are happening. So in our life also, on a minuscule level, changes are happening. So those are called subtle impermanence.
Is that the idea that each moment is it like comes and goes and like you're living and
Yes,
dying?
yes, 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 yes. On a very, very subtle level, things are in a flux.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that
like
if you go to the very subtle level, that is subtle impermanence.
like a movie kind of. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh no, I just meant like the little, when you see a movie, there it's made out of just little screenshots all put together. So is
Yeah,
that
but
like
the changes that you see is gross because your eye is able to see that.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thanks, Jackie. Thank you so much, Kishla. Looks like this is all for this evening. And until we see you next time, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Stay
Thank you.
safe and take
Thank
care,
you.
Kishla. Take care, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be here after Kishla leaves for a few minutes if you have anything to review on
Thank you.
or any thoughts. Thank you,
Thank
Kishla.
you, Geshe.